Odyssey app, or wherever you get your podcasts.
The United States of America is as strong and as proud and as great as ever.
And that's the way it is. Friday, March 6th, 1981. I'll be away on assignment, and Dan Rather will be sitting in here for the next few years. Good night.
Welcome to CBS News, America Decides Campaign 2026. It's not a never-ending campaign in America. It just feels that way, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Major Garrett, CBS Broadcast headquarters in New York. Tonight's primaries, Texas, North Carolina, Arkansas, mark the start of the midterm season, whether you are ready for it or not. Decisions made by voters today, reflected tonight in terms of general election nominees, could very well impact control of the House and the Senate in November, and whether President Trump will have 2 more years of Republican support in the House and Senate, or in one of those chambers, a Democratic barrier to his legislative agenda. Polls are mostly closed in Texas. That's the really big one tonight, except for one county in Texas, and it's a pretty large one. Dallas County will keep its polls open 1 more hour for Democratic primary voting. We will explain why they're doing that in just a second. I want to take a look at the results with that in mind. As I mentioned, Texas is our big focus tonight. As you can see in the Democratic Senate primary, James Talarico has a small lead over Jasmine Crockett. About, what does that say, 36%, 37% of the vote in? On the Republican side, this is a 3-way contest with incumbent John Cornyn very much in jeopardy, although at the moment he has a somewhat slight lead over Ken Paxton, the Attorney General, and Member of Congress Wesley Hunt. In North Carolina, we have projections. Do we not? Yes, indeed. Roy Cooper, going to be the North Carolina Democratic Senate nominee. And on the Republican side in North Carolina, Michael Whatley, former RNC chairman, also the projected winner. So that contest is set. Michael Whatley against Roy Cooper. Roy Cooper, 2-term governor in North Carolina. That will be among the most costly Senate races in this cycle. Senior White House and political correspondent, has been in Texas. Ed O'Keefe has been there for quite some time. He is at James Talarico headquarters in Austin, I believe. Ed, tell us about Dallas County and what you're seeing on the ground so far.
Major, good evening. Opening night of campaign 2026 going to run a little longer than scheduled because of some confusion in Dallas County today. On nights like this, we're reminded that all 50 states do things about 50 different ways, and then when it gets to its counties, they do it even more different. In this case, in Dallas, traditionally, the Democrats and Republicans have held primaries essentially in the same system and in the same way on the same day. Well, Republicans in that county decided to do theirs separate from the Democrats, and it confused the process and basically changed the rules that any Democrat could show up anywhere in the county and cast their ballot, and instead forced them to go to their precinct. And it caused hundreds of people to either delay their ability to vote or decide ultimately that they just didn't have the time to do it. So they've sought a ruling from a local judge who has insisted and instructed county officials to keep the Democratic count open in that county for another hour. Democrats calling on their voters, if they're in line, stay in line. You can cast your ballot, and that is the case across this state. If you're in line when the polls close and you haven't cast your ballot, you are ultimately allowed to do so. So it'll prolong the results and the ultimate calls and who won tonight, at least on the Democratic side, because you need to see the numbers in Dallas before you figure out ultimately who prevails. You mentioned this contest is between the Dallas area Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett and the Austin area state lawmaker James Talarico, whose event we're at here tonight. And they're cheering as they start to see results that suggest he is holding on to an edge. A few hundred people here at a music club in South Austin as he waits for results. Ultimately, the Talarico team tells us they understand they've got to do well in this area where, of course, Talarico represents. They noticed that Jasmine Crockett didn't do as well in and around Houston, where she was trying to draw Harris County's predominantly African-American Democratic voting population. And they're curious to see how well she does in her native DFW, particularly Dallas County, of which she represents part of it. That one will go on for a little bit. On the Republican side, as you mentioned, John Cornyn faces a pretty tight three-way contest with the Attorney General Ken Paxton, and the Houston area Congressman Wesley Hunt will be watching that. Remember tonight, folks, you got to get 50% plus one to win this outright. If it doesn't happen, there's another runoff in late May. Republicans expect there will be. Democrats hope they can sort it out tonight, Major.
Ed O'Keefe, I guarantee you we'll be coming back to you frequently as the night progresses. Thank you for setting things up. I want to take a look at the early maps. America, you got what you wanted. It's a studio in New York, and there's only two people in it. Me and Anthony Salvanta. We finally get the run of the whole place. Anthony, tell me what's going on in Texas.
All right, which means we're going to look at maps.
Yes, maps,
right,
maps. We love them.
And I'm going to pick up where Ed left off, and that is this. Turnout is going to be really high tonight. In fact, our expected vote, and I'm just going to write it here, even though it's up in the corner of the screen. Right now, we're looking at 2.3 million. For comparison, there were 2 million cast in the presidential primary back in 2020. The bigger story there, too, is that both of these campaigns, Talarico, Crockett, are trying to expand the electorate. And so far, you look at the voter files and you see it. They've been able to bring out a lot of voters who haven't voted in primaries before. Democrats are going to say that means enthusiasm, might mean a reshaped electorate. Okay. Now, the other part of this is picking up on what Ed said about needing to see Dallas. Yes, I need to see Dallas before I can call this race. But one of the reasons for that is Democrats in Texas, a lot of them live in Dallas. And there's going to be over 250,000, I think, votes out of Dallas. So you can imagine that's going to be pretty important. The other part of that is we don't see Dallas yet, but I can bring you down to Houston here, where we do have some votes in, and you do see that Jasmine Crockett is doing well there in Houston. She might expect to do well in Dallas. So it is, in that sense, a tale of two cities here as we see the early votes. But yes, through the night, somebody's got to get over 50% or it goes to a runoff. That's your early look on the Dem side.
Anthony, let's stay right where you are. Don't move anything, because you've got Harris County illuminated there. As I understand at the top, because I've read these maps before, I've worked them, 69% of Harris County is in. Is that, am I reading that number up in the right-hand corner properly?
You are.
Okay. So as I understood it from the Crockett campaign, they were looking for a bigger number out of Harris County because that is a largely African-American Democratic electorate. I would imagine, I'm just presuming, the Talarico campaign, probably based on 65% in, is feeling okay about what they're seeing.
Two parts to that. You see that lead at 17,000 votes?
Yep.
Now, a lot of that, 69%, it's going to be a mix of absentee, early vote, and election day. A big part of this campaign has been who could turn out new voters and get them to vote early. So, yes, if you're the Talarico campaign, which put a lot of emphasis on that, then yes, you might be encouraged by that as well. But overall, the patterns, if she's up in Harris, and let's just break down the map for folks. Right now, the way the colors work on this here is you've got purple representing counties where Crockett's in the lead and yellow where Talarico is. You do see Talarico doing a little bit better in a lot of these rural counties in and around Texas as well. What you can do, look, Texas has, 254 counties? What you can do there is kind of run up a score little by little. Smaller counties, but keep building and building votes, and that might bode well for him.
What else are you going to be watching as this map develops and the numbers come in?
Well, the other part of this, too, you mentioned also the other cities. You mentioned Austin, Travis County down here, okay? Right now, big lead there for Talarico, right? Going to run up that. The other part, though, we haven't seen San Antonio yet. That's still to come. So we're still, in that sense, we're still early in the night. And then you've got the rest of these more rural areas, too, to still fill in.
And based on our experience, Anthony, how rapidly do Texas numbers come in? Are we going to see this progressing through the hour at a pretty rapid pace?
Well, by about 10 o'clock Eastern, I think you're going to see substantially more. While we're here talking, I think you're going to see substantially more. But the other part of this, though, is if we do have to wait a little bit on Dallas, and that's we're sort of back to the top of the point, we're going to come back to that.
And what I want you to do, Anthony, and I want you to promise me this, when you have something important to say, you just come and splash some water on my face, and I'll turn my direction that way, and you show me what's going on, all right?
Deal.
You have full authority.
Deal.
All water. Splash it right in the face. You mentioned Dallas County. We talked about that from the top. So I'm going to turn to David Becker, because if anyone can explain what happened and why and what it means, David Becker can. He's our election law expert. David, what's going on there?
So what we're seeing in Texas is that in Dallas County and a couple other counties like Williamson, there were claims made by the county Republican parties that required the counties themselves to move from what they had done in the past, which was to allow for anyone in the county to vote in any of the locations in the county that they wanted to. And for the first time in a long time, people had to go to one specific location, a precinct location, and that confused a lot of voters. And in Dallas County, a court has now ruled that the polls have to remain open until 9 p.m. Texas time, Central Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. But I'm being told that even in places like Williamson County, which is outside of Austin, that there are still lines of maybe 2 to 3 hours long of individuals waiting to vote. So this confusion has a cost, and that cost is that we're going to have to wait a little bit longer. So we just have to be patient. The election officials are doing what they're always trained to do. They're experiencing what Anthony mentioned, which is the very high turnout, which is good news. We should be celebrating the fact that so many Texans and North Carolinians and Arkansans wanted to turn out and express their voice in this election.
So I'm going to use some of the terminology that I think applies here. So in Dallas County, Williamson County, they previously had what you and I know and what maybe some voters recognize as a vote center.
That's right.
A place that unifies several precincts in one spot. And after this rules change, you had to go to the specific precinct linked to your registration. If you looked for your vote center, it didn't exist. And that probably created some confusion, and this might also represent a gap in voter education when you change rules.
And it's also a difference between the early voting period, where anyone could vote in any location within a county, and the election day voting period, where on this day, on today, everyone had only one place that they could go and vote legally. And so people were being redirected and turned away, and election officials are doing their best with this, given that there was this significant change in election process. I mean, I think what most counties have seen in Texas is that the vote center process, as you defined, Major, where anyone could vote anywhere within the county, was working really well with Texans, and I think a lot of voters were confused by the change.
And David, in general, when people are standing online, are they typically allowed to vote even though the hour has passed?
Everywhere I know of in the United States, if you were in line at the moment when the polls closed, you can still vote. It may take some time to work your way up through the line and cast your ballot, but usually what you see in polling places is they will station an individual, a poll worker, at the moment the polls close and say, in front of that person, that those voters can vote, and behind that person, no more voters. So we may be waiting a little bit of time in some places where there are very long lines. And what I would suggest is that's good news. People want to vote. People want to express their voice. And if it might take a little bit longer, we'll just have to wait for it.
And I know you will keep track of this as the evening progresses. David Becker, that's great stuff. Thanks for the breakdown. I really appreciate it. I want to dive into the big races and storylines of the night. CBS News Chief Washington Analyst Robert Costa and congressional correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns join me from our bureau in Washington. Robert, early thoughts?
Great to be with you, Major, and with the whole team here at CBS News. Both of these primary contests are really microcosms of where both respective major parties are at this time. It's not so much about ideology in either party. You're not seeing these major debates about taxes or spending in Washington. It's about tone. It's about personality. It's about who's going to represent the future of these parties. And you see, especially in the Republican race, a generational fight in the wake of President Trump's dominance of the Republican Party over the past 10 years. Someone like Senator John Cornyn, like so many Republican senators, has tried his best to navigate all of the choppy waters as President Trump has zigged and zagged on different issues and sometimes had a contentious relationship with the Senate. But ultimately, some more Trump-aligned people, whether it's Ken Paxton in Texas or Wesley Hunt in Congress, really want to be the voice of the MAGA movement going ahead, and they're not going to let Senator Cornyn run uncontested.
And Robert, just to talk about that for a moment longer, John Cornyn, I think, has a voting record that's 98 or 99% with President Trump and the Trump agenda. He has had at times said some things that were less than flattering, but not outright opposed to the Trump agenda or President Trump personally. And yet he finds himself, after, I believe, somewhere near $70 million were spent on TV ads in this campaign, still struggling to get over 50%. That seems to me to be suggestive of restiveness within the MAGA-defined or MAGA newly defined Texas Republican Party.
I would argue, Major, as your colleague and friend, it's far more than restiveness. This is real anxiety. Because Senator Cornyn, you've interviewed him many times. I've interviewed him many times, covered him over the years. He's navigated the Senate like many senators. He wants to be independent. He's conservative. He's Republican, but he's a former judge. He's going to have his own judgment on these issues. And when it comes to President Trump, he's not wholesale behind him on every front, and that has come at a political cost. President Trump has decided not to issue an endorsement in this primary contest, and that has left Senator Cornyn in his mid-70s somewhat out there isolated despite his long relationship with Senator McConnell. Senator Cornyn was number 2 in the Senate just a few years ago, a real player, yet running without the endorsement of the incumbent president.
Caitlin Huey-Burns, your thoughts as this night opens up before us.
Yeah, I mean, to pick up on that point, I think tonight will be, at least for the Republicans, a huge test about the power or perils of incumbency. We're going to see that not only in that Senate race, and you mentioned John Cornyn, he's had this seat for nearly 25 years, a long, long time. But on the House side as well, you have a number of House races where Republican incumbents may also risk losing their seats as well. You do have this competition between the MAGA base and the more kind of traditional Republican at play, but also the broader idea of just wanting something new, I think, will be tested here. We haven't talked about the Democrats yet, and I think that's significant because this is a seat, the Senate seat, is a seat that Democrats are going to have to win if they want to take over the majority. And we've talked a lot about how Democrats are trying to navigate who they are in this Trump era, and they're still trying to figure it out. Tonight can provide some data points, especially for Democrats competing in this new media age. You have Talarico and Crockett, who are both kind of become viral sensations online within the party, but in very different ways. Crockett is a member of the House already, but she has become kind of made a name for herself in the House as someone who's really provocative, who really leans in and congressional hearings and other methods to really poke and needle the Republicans and especially the president. Now, Talarico has kind of fashioned himself as someone who could appeal to a broader swath of the electorate, something that Democrats said after the last election they wanted a little bit more of. But he's also been able to kind of capitalize on this new media environment as well. He travels with people who are recording him at every turn. You can ask anyone who doesn't really pay attention to a lot of these political discussions, has likely seen videos of him on their Instagram or social media accounts, and Crockett as well. And that's kind of all by design. And that, I think, is a big story within the Democratic Party. They are trying to really figure out not only how to make an impression, but to see if they can win on that. And I think tonight will be a big test that both sides seem like they are looking at this to see what kind of candidates can be effective in the fall.
Setting the table for us tonight brilliantly, Caitlin Huey-Burns and Robert Costa. As we mentioned, CBS News can and has projected former North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper will win the Democratic nomination for the Senate. CBS News congressional reporter Torian Small is in Raleigh, where Cooper just addressed the crowd. Torian, take it away.
Yeah, so we saw this race shaping up tonight to be one that Democrats are looking to take advantage of the fact that the incumbent advantage here is no longer on the table. This is a true pickup to them. And they're pointing to 2024. Yes, the top line major was the fact that Donald Trump beat Kamala Harris here. But down the ballot, they saw Democrats taking in statewide races. Governor, Lieutenant Governor, Attorney General, Secretary of State. I talked to Anderson Clayton, the state party chair, and she She says the reason for that is because Democrats, in her mind, has momentum. I want to bring up what Cooper said on the stage just moments ago. He said that if you want a different Washington, this is the campaign for you. Looking to draw daylight between him and Whatley and Whatley's association with Donald Trump. Whatley, as we all know, was RNC chairman. He was instrumental in setting up that national infrastructure for Donald Trump to retake the White House. Cooper saying that this is the best opportunity they have to not just show voters that they can make a difference here in North Carolina and elect a Democrat. This will be the first time since 2008 a Democrat won a U.S. Senate seat. Also the last time a Democrat won president in North Carolina. But then we have Republicans telling me that this is a different electorate from 2024. According to the State Board of Elections, this is the first time we've seen registered Republican voters outpace registered Democratic voters. And part of the reason for that is the number of unaffiliated registered voters also increased. We also know that Republicans are looking to use that momentum to paint a different picture of Cooper that this state has known for some time. Cooper, not only just a Democrat for 2 terms or Democratic governor for 2 terms, he was the state attorney general since 2000. So as they look to repaint his legacy, Democrats are just looking to take advantage of this open seat, which is why a lot of eyes, Major, will be on this as that potential win for Democrats as they look to take the majority in the Senate.
And both parties in North Carolina sifting not only voter registration, but turnout on this primary night. Torian Small, thank you so much. These primaries, of course, are occurring in the shadow of war with Iran. Joining us now, retired Army Lieutenant General H.R. McMaster. McMaster served 34 years in the Army, was National Security Advisor under President Trump. H.R., always good to talk to you. Where are we on this? Good to have you with us, H.R. Where are we in this? Because the White House seems to be trying to prepare the country for something of a duration of a couple of weeks, at least, maybe longer. I was talking to Matt Gutman, our national correspondent, our special correspondent in Tel Aviv earlier on my show, The Takeout, and he said the Israelis are beginning to sound like their part of this may wrap up by week's end. Is there any way to reconcile those two projected timelines?
Yeah, I think so, Major. I think if you look at the objectives that the administration has been discussing in terms of Iran not being able to threaten the region with these destructive capabilities, that's going to take some time. But I think it's going to be part of like a continual assessment based on now air superiority and being able to fly 4th generation fighters with impunity across the whole country. And so what are those capabilities? It's the missiles. It's really the missile launchers, even more than the missiles themselves. It's the drones and the storage capacity for those drones. And that's going to take time to effect. But, Major, I think what is ultimately going to have to happen for Iran not to be able to threaten the region and threaten, the United States and our interests in the region, the 10 countries that they have now attacked with this drone and missile strike complex, is really a change in the nature of that government such that it ceases its permanent hostility to the United States, which they call the Great Satan, Israel, which they call the cancerous boil, and their Arab neighbors. And so you're seeing kind of a seismic change in the Middle East now, Major, where the countries that have tried to conciliate with Iran are now on the receiving end. And so I think what you're going to see is a strengthening of the coalition between Israel, the U.S., and the Gulf states in trying to effect a change in the nature of the government in Iran.
HR, it feels fraught in the region right now. Lots of Americans are trying to get out of Israel. Other parts of the region, they can't do that because the airports are closed or the airspace is closed. The United States government said today will charter military or civilian charter aircraft to help them. Is it as fraught as it appears? And what do you think the timeline for that level of anxiety within the region is likely to be?
Yeah, it's fraught, Major. Obviously, you see the images, you see the thousands of missiles and drones that have been fired at 10 countries in the region, and what you're seeing is kind of the cost and the risk associated with acting against the Islamic Republic of Iran, a country that's been waging really a war against us, you could say, since 1947. And ultimately, I think, though, that this campaign could end that 47-year-long war and lead to longer-term stability and security. What you're seeing is kind of a moment of clarity here for countries in the region to recognize that there really can't be enduring peace while you have this theocratic dictatorship in power that is sort of driven and constrained by the ideology of the revolution and their hatred, their avowed hatred against the United States, Israel, and really their Arab neighbors, and of course their enmity for their own population. What's changed here, I think, Major, in the last few weeks, last month or so, is the scale of the brutality that has been directed at the Iranian people themselves. I mean, 30,000 people killed in a 48-hour period. And so I think what you're going to see now is a sustained campaign against the targets I mentioned, but also increasingly, as we've seen in the last 24 hours, against the repressive arms of the regime. The MOIS headquarters was taken out today. That's like think of it as the Iranian Gestapo, the IRGC leadership, the Basij. The question is, will that create enough space for Iranians to demand, and to have the strength to demand, a change in the nature of their government?
That is well, there are many unknown things to come, but that is probably the biggest on the list of known unknowns. H.R. McMaster, always a pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Thanks, Major.
When we come back, we will take a closer look at Republican Senator John Cornyn's effort to win re-election one more time in Texas. You're watching CBS News America Decides Campaign 2026. We will be, I promise you, right back.
Go to the ends of the earth.
We'll hit the heights.
A great adventure together.
And reach for the stars.
Star power. I like it.
So cool.
But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking.
Something that's undeniable.
With mindfulness. Innovative.
Magical. It's like being a child.
And truly original reporting.
God, you do your research. I tell a good story.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
The 18-year-old soccer sensation igniting worldwide buzz.
How good is this kid?
The defenders are just bewitched.
Lamine Yamal.
You ever talk to the soccer ball?
I'm Major Garrett in Washington, inviting you to The Takeout. Politics, policy, people, and pop culture served up weeknights. What's on the menu? Plenty. The day's happenings with curiosity, informality, and humor. It's serious discussion, but we do not take ourselves too seriously. Who is a better speaker, Mike Johnson or you?
Oh, come on.
Join me on The Takeout. Streaming right here on CBS News 24/7.
You both had talked about going on Survivor together.
Right. A Survivor contestant believes his sister was murdered.
I'm sorry that I couldn't protect you.
And is determined to be her voice.
This is her speaking to everyone, saying, don't let this happen to you.
48 Hours, now streaming on CBS and Paramount+.
Chilling with the queen, her name is Gail King.
Hey!
CBS Morning.
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 CBS Mornings on CBS and where else?
Paramount Plus.
See you at 7.
CBS. CBS Mornings.
I want a mug. Yeah, good mug.
A stalker sends menacing messages to a young mother before she's murdered.
They all just kind of said, I can't believe this happened. He did it. The stalker did it. There's a killer out there, and we're going to go after him.
But the investigation reveals a sinister setup.
I think his head is spinning, thinking about what else are they going to find.
48 Hours, now streaming on CBS and Paramount+.
Money Watch is your no-nonsense guide to taking control of your finances, where I offer practical, real-world advice with no jargon and no judgment. I'm Jill Schlesinger. Listen to Money Watch wherever you get your podcasts.
It could be the greatest turnaround in college football history.
What is the magic here?
The undefeated Big Ten champs, Indiana Hoosiers.
CBS Mornings.
CBS Mornings on CBS and where else?
Paramount Plus.
See you at 7.
CBS Mornings.
Welcome back. Here's a look at some other races we are watching tonight. North Carolina House, Congressional District 4. Valerie Fouché, that is a lean Democrat, according to our projections, 73% of the vote in. In Arkansas, we have results and, I believe, a projection. Republican Senator Tom Cotton, projected winner in the Arkansas Senate Republican primary. CBS News Elections and Surveys Director Anthony Salvanto. No splash of the water yet, at least not yet, but you've got something to tell me about Texas. Please take it away.
I don't need the water because I'm kind of loud. So
okay, you are kind of loud, no doubt.
No doubt. Loud. But look, especially when I get excited about election results and maps, right? I want to take you inside the way we look at a race, not just by region, which I'm going to do in a minute, but also by vote type, because it tells a story. Republicans in general elections tend to vote more on election day than earlier absentee. Now, some of the Republican Party are trying to change that, trying to get more out. And one of the things we noticed here is in the Cornyn and Paxton race, if I do this and I show you the breakdown, okay, this is the early vote. Very competitive, a little bit of an edge there for Cornyn in our early estimates based on what we've seen before. That speaks to the organization of his campaign. But he keeps pace on the day of. And some folks thought going in that Paxton might be able to get more of that election day vote out and maybe overtake him. So far, not so much, but we've still got a ways to go. Now I'm going to go back to the map. And the other thing I want to show you is a couple minutes ago, I said, where do Democrats live in Texas, right? Well, let me show you where Republicans live in Texas. And what I'm going to do for that is I'm just going to show you the 2024 presidential race, the red counties. The answer to that is just about everywhere except for the cities, right? So what this really means is, unlike a lot of other states where you get a lot of suburban swing vote, in Texas, the suburbs around Dallas, the suburbs around and outside Houston are really Republican. That's those places where both Cornyn and Paxton are going to be trying to really make hay. I just went to the Democrats there, but I'm going to go back to the Republicans for a second and show you that, because what's going to happen here is, as we see more from those outer suburbs, I'll just hit Tarrant County here, a little bit better for Cornyn. As we see more from those outer suburbs, we're going to get a better picture of this race. Final note, Major, remember, nobody gets over 50%. We're back here again for a runoff.
Exactly, Anthony, so I'm going to stop you right there. Any sense at all in any of the data that we have accumulated so far that might indicate if anyone on the Republican side could get over 50?
Right now, if you were to model this against 50%, you would not make it.
You would not make it. No one, Cornyn wouldn't make it, Paxton wouldn't make it, obviously Hunt wouldn't either.
And look, you've got 13% going to Hunt right now in the estimate and a few other candidates, right? When it's this tight, 23,000 vote lead, right, just a couple of points, that 13% is massive. It's effectively massive. It'll keep somebody from getting over 50. Way early, still early.
46% in, right?
Not even half our estimated vote in, but the trend pattern here suggests, yeah, we might be back here.
What about on the Democratic side? Anything in our data that suggests anyone could get over 50 in that contest?
Well, that one I still think could go to a runoff, but look at where we are at this point.
44% in.
Yeah, 44%, but Talarico with that 53, right? So as we get over the halfway line, as we get there, you might think, well, the model is going to put that at something maybe a little bit over 50. I think if you compare the two races, that one has the better chance comparatively of being settled. Long way to go, but that would be the difference.
And this is a fluid situation because as Anthony was speaking, he went from 43% of the vote in to 44% of the vote in. That's how things move.
This update's live so that you know at home.
Exactly.
As we see it, you see it.
And you can see it on the website as well. Joel Payne, CBS News political contributor and Democratic strategist. Doug Heye, Republican strategist, former RNC communications director. Gentlemen, Joel, I'll start with you. Impressions thus far?
Well, it looks like Talarico and Crockett in Texas is going to come down to what happens outside of those big cities, Houston, Austin, San Antonio. It seems like in Houston, while Crockett performed well, she may not have performed well enough to hold off Talarico's momentum in some of those other big vote-getting areas. Also, I think the big subplot here, Major, is Latino voters. So if you think about Jasmine Crockett, her coalition is going to be African-American voters, probably older voters, maybe more working-class voters. Talarico, maybe a little bit more typical progressive college town like Austin, higher educated voters. The Latino voters were the people in the middle who I think everyone who's been watching this race on the Democratic side has been wondering, where's that going to go? Right now, the numbers early on look pretty good for Talarico. And if you listen to a lot of the reports out of the state, it looks like he is overperforming there. And I think something that in the analysis on the back end of this is going to be some comments that Jasmine Crockett made after the 2024 general election loss for Democrats, where she talked about the Latino community. She talked about them in some disparaging terms. And I think that might be something that comes back to reign very, very supreme on a night like tonight.
Joel, before I let you go, thoughts about whether it would make, or how much of a difference, because I know it would make a difference, how much of a difference would it make for Democrats, whoever the nominee is, to clear it tonight, 50 or +1, versus a Republican runoff, which appears pretty much guaranteed?
I think for sure. And just, kind of vis-a-vis kind of that Republican race versus Democratic race. Look, Democrats want Republicans to continue this fight as long as possible. I think something that's interesting, if you look at what's happening on the Republican side, is Republicans in Washington, D.C. spent about $70 million to boost John Cornyn. Now, that might be enough either tonight or in a runoff to get Cornyn over the 50% mark to actually win. But if it doesn't, they spent $70 million to weaken Ken Paxton. That might be the candidate that they have to run, and then they're going to have to spend probably another $6, in the sums of tens and hundreds of millions to actually save Paxton if he ends up being their general election candidate, whether it's Crockett or Talarico. So whether or not John Cornyn or Ken Paxton is the best candidate, Republicans have sunk so much money into this race, it will reign very big on what happens around the country come November this year.
Doug, those who know you well know you have deep roots in North Carolina, love the Tar Heel state. So assess for me what we knew was going to happen. Roy Cooper on the Democratic side in that Senate race, Michael Whatley on the Republican side in that Senate race. It's going to be one of the most expensive of the cycle.
It is, and just as a news update, North Carolina just beat Clemson in basketball about 7 minutes ago by 4 points, a big game. Look,
that's our Sports Center moment, folks. Please indulge us.
It's going to be a very big race and a very expensive race, but depending on what happens in Texas, it will pale in comparison as Republicans determine who their nominee is. And I say that because, not just because, and Joel is right, that we've spent about $70 million, but it turns out if Ken Paxton is our nominee, the NRSC expects that they will spend up to $200 to defend that seat if Paxton's our nominee, because the reality is Ken Paxton has more baggage than the Love Boat. And Mike Whatley doesn't have that. Roy Cooper doesn't have that. It really changes the dynamic, not just in Texas, but in North Carolina and in Maine and in other important swing states as well.
200 million is what you meant. 200 million. Yes.
200, yes.
And that's a great Love Boat joke. Talk to me about the Roy Cooper, Michael Whatley dynamic. As historian Small indicated, Republicans are going to say Roy Cooper is much more liberal than he appears to you in this campaign. But Roy Cooper has a long-standing relationship statewide with not just Democratic voters, but independents in that state.
He does. Look, he's won statewide 4 separate times, twice as Attorney General, twice as governor, very popular. And so I don't think that the radical Roy tag really works in North Carolina, because he sort of looks like Matlock. And the reality is, when you tie him to other things, the fact that he's made certain decisions that his family has then profited from, I think that may be a better way to go. Certainly in campaigns, we love to use alliteration, so I get the radical Roy and why that may work, or why we want to do that. But if he's enriched his family, I think that's a much better attack.
We love 1970s TV references. Matlock and Love Boat. Doug High, thank you very much. When we come back, we'll talk with Democratic strategist Chuck Rocha, why he thinks James Talarico, with whom he is working, is the man to flip the Lone Star State blue. You're watching CBS News America Decides Campaign 2026. I promise you we will be right back.
Chilling with the queen, her name is Gail King.
Hey!
CBS.
CBS Morning.
CBS Morning.
CBS Morning.
CBS Morning. CBS Morning.
CBS Morning. CBS Morning.
CBS Mornings on CBS and where else?
Paramount Plus.
See you at 7.
CBS Mornings.
I want a mug. Yeah, good mug.
It was almost like being face to face with the devil.
48 Hours reports. I fought and fought.
911, what is your emergency?
She disappeared off the face of the earth. Stream 48 Hours, 24/7.
I'm Major Garrett in Washington, inviting you to The Takeout. Politics, policy, people, and pop culture served up weeknights. What's on the menu? Plenty. The day's happenings with curiosity, informality, and humor. It's serious discussion, but we do not take ourselves too seriously. Who was a better speaker, Mike Johnson or you?
Oh, come on.
Join me on The Takeout. Streaming right here on CBS News 24/7.
Money Watch is your no-nonsense guide to taking control of your finances, where I offer practical, real-world advice with no jargon and no judgment. I'm Jill Schlesinger. Listen to Money Watch wherever you get your podcasts.
Go to the ends of the earth.
We'll hit the heights.
A great adventure together.
And reach for the stars.
Star power. I like it.
So cool.
But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking,
Something that's undeniable.
With mindfulness.
innovative,
Magical.
It's like being a child.
and truly original reporting.
God, you do your research. I tell a good story.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
Why America's last best place is at risk.
If the public land that you use were sold off, could you run your business?
A stalker sends menacing messages to a young mother before she's murdered.
They all just kind of said, I can't believe this happened. He did it. The stalker did it. There's a killer out there, and we're going to go after him.
But the investigation reveals a sinister setup.
I think his head is spinning, thinking about what else are they going to find.
48 Hours, now streaming on CBS and Paramount Plus.
Politics isn't a game. When do consumers actually get to touch and feel a difference in their lives? Politics is about policy. So you would encourage Democrats to work with Donald Trump on an issue like healthcare? I'm a voracious consumer of information, and I'm impatient. I don't like to be spun. Do you know if there are active terror cells in the United States right now? To be moderator of Face the Nation means bringing the most powerful stakeholders to the table to become better informed.
As the big sign says, it's primary night. Welcome back to CBS News, America Decides Campaign 2026. We're going to check in on the big races in Texas. Republican Senate, John Cornyn, you see just under 43%. Ken Paxton closing 40.5%. Wesley Hunt far behind. On the Democratic side, James Talarico holding on to that 53%. Jasmine Crockett still just under 46%, with, in that race, 45% of the vote in. Want to go now to Ed O'Keefe, who is in Austin following this race, and I believe he has Chuck Rocha with him. Ed, can you hear me?
Major, I can. Chuck Rocha, of course, CBS News political consultant, friend of the Takeout, friend of the CBS News political unit, proud son of Tyler, Texas. Right. And we should point out on the payroll of the Talarico campaign as well. How are things looking tonight? What are you anticipating as we wait for results from Dallas and now a potential delay for out of El Paso as well?
To your point, Ed, some of the biggest counties are still out. Only half the vote is in. We feel really good and excited, especially with what we're seeing with Latino voters. We knew going in that Talarico would be really popular with white voters and Congresswoman Crockett would be really popular with African Americans. The Latino vote was going to be the centerpiece here. And looking at what's coming in the Valley and in some of the boxes in Houston that are major Latino precincts, we are dominating, and that's a good sign for Talarico.
So that's mission accomplished in essence. If you end up winning this thing and watching the Republicans go into a runoff between Senator Cornyn and Ken Paxton, and you have to wait 2 months to determine who their nominee is. What do you get to do in those 2 months while the Republicans marinate?
We get to do the same thing we've been doing for months, which is go out and show up in communities and actually talk to them. That's the biggest difference we've been doing right now. If you watch what James has been doing, out talking to people, he's not just talking to Democrats, he's talking to independents, he's talking to Republicans, and we're showing up and having these conversations. This campaign's had over 560 community events in the last 3 months. That's showing up and listening.
This is a 254 county state. I mean, 560 community events sounds impressive in much smaller places. You're going to have to do a lot of spade work in this state. And you know, and there are people watching us right now who are thinking to themselves, wait a second, I have seen this before. Democrats get very excited about somebody they think might be able to do it, and then they fall short. What is he going to do differently that Beto O'Rourke couldn't do, that all the others that have tried to win either the Senate or a governor's race here have been failing to do since 1994?
That's a very fair question, and I've been that guy saying it's going to happen. We're going to turn Texas blue. But don't listen to me. Look at the numbers tonight. More people are voting in this Democratic primary. More people are voting overall because America is not happy. They're not happy with their government. They're not happy with their elected officials, and something special is happening. Not just Chuck Rocha talking about it, not a poll, but actually people showing up and standing in line in record numbers. That's what you have to turn Texas blue.
I will say, we've been here for the last week, going to different events held by the different candidates, tracking what they've been doing. Nobody had bigger crowds than Talarico did. 400 plus at an event at UT Dallas last week. He had a few hundred again in San Antonio on Sunday. Big Democratic areas where you got to find that vote, but far larger than anything Crockett was doing. So there is definite momentum, it would seem. You look at those Republican results tonight, and Cornyn's warning that if only the radical Republicans showed up tonight, he would be in bad shape. It does appear that's what's happening.
Yeah, and we don't care who we run against. I mean, I think James Talarico, if he wins tonight and we feel good about tonight, we're ready to take on whoever, because we're going to take a message to their voters as well and say there's an alternative to all the hate you've been seeing online. There's an alternative to everybody fighting with each other. There's a way for this country to actually come together and get something done.
Quick question to you, and maybe it's also to Anthony and Major back in New York. At the end of tonight, will you be able to tell from the voter data if someone who once voted as an independent or Republican played in the Democratic primary instead? Because the rule here is you can show up and say, I want to vote in the Democratic primary, sight unseen before, right?
It's one of the most interesting things that's happened in early vote in person. We already know that 12% of that electorate that started before today was Republican and had voted in a Republican primary in the past.
And you think that would be voting for your guy?
Yes.
All right. Chuck Rocha, CBS News political consultant, a Talarico advisor. Major, they're feeling pretty good, but we got to wait to see what happens out of Dallas, out of El Paso, and whether or not he can prevail. Remember, he's got the big tent approach, whereas Crockett's been far more of a partisan warrior. And he told us earlier this week, he shows up at his events, people whisper to him, I'm an independent, I'm a Republican, and I'm going to vote for you. He says as if they're coming out of the witness protection program to admit it. We'll see if it works.
Keeping with the 70s theme that Doug High gave us, we'll just find out if it's more than a feeling there in Austin. I want to bring back Bob Costa and Caitlin Huey-Burns. Caitlin Huey-Burns will tell us about things also happening in Texas that are on our mind, which are several interesting House races. Caitlin, pick it up
Major,
from there.
you can never forget about the House, all right? There's a lot of interesting races over here. Members of Congress on the House side will tell you. So a few things to consider, Major. First, we've been talking about this redistricting that happened in Texas. At the president's request, scrambled a lot of these districts. And I want to focus on a couple of them, one Democrat, one Republican. In the Democratic district, this forced two incumbents against each other. This creates that kind of awkward scenario. And this focuses on Al Green's district. People may remember Al Green from just last week. He was kicked out of the State of the Union address for protesting the president there. He has been a consistent agitator in those types of events and consistently has tried to call for impeachment of the president. You see him there falling behind a newly elected member of Congress who was elected in a different district just recently, Christian Menefree, and he now is facing Al Green. And look there with the, 68% of the vote in, he is leading Al Green at this point, not to the 50% threshold. So we are watching there because that would be another incumbent potentially falling out here. The other incumbents that we're watching, Dan Crenshaw, who you may remember is had been a popular member of Congress in the House. He was a former Navy SEAL. You see him on your screen there. His district changed a little bit here. And the President Trump, notably did not endorse in this race. This is the only Texas Republican House race that he didn't endorse in. Senator Ted Cruz did, and he endorsed Crenshaw's opponent, who is a state senator, Steve Toth. And in our early results here, you see that Toth is really pulling away with this at this point. So Crenshaw would be potentially another Republican incumbent to fall tonight. Major, the final race I'm watching is Tony Gonzalez. You probably heard a lot about Tony Gonzalez over the past few weeks. He is a representative of a very, very conservative district in Texas, secured the president's endorsement along with Republican leadership, but he had come under immense scrutiny over the past several weeks for an alleged affair that he had with a former staffer who then later died by suicide. This had kind of resurfaced over the past couple of weeks, and there had been a lot of pressure on Republican leadership to call for Gonzalez to drop out of the race, to not only drop out of the race, but to resign from Congress. Some of his Republican colleagues in Congress have called on him to resign. I asked Speaker Johnson about him last week, and he said, look, voters in Texas are going to figure this out for themselves. So it looks like he is pulling ahead here. We'll wait and see. But notably, he's important because Republicans don't want him to resign because they have such a small threshold of leadership in the House and really need his vote.
Robert Costa-Kalin referred to this. I want to talk to you about the Trump effect in Texas because there is no defined Trump effect yet. It's implied in the Senate race. He has not endorsed, and he will not, obviously, but before all the votes are tallied tonight, that's a factor.
And President Trump monitors everything when it comes to media appearances, and politics can be a fickle business. Think back to 2020. President Trump had just been defeated by then Vice President Biden, and he was on the ropes politically. And many in the Republican Party were expecting him to go away forever, to not come back. And Congressman Crenshaw at the time was not echoing President Trump when it comes to his assessment of the 2020 election. And then in 2022, when Russia invaded Ukraine, it was Congressman Crenshaw who was more of the hawkish interventionist voice in the GOP, not sounding like an America First Trump Republican on foreign policy, but much more in the traditional Republican mold. That, again, as it was for Senator Cornyn with his own independence on certain issues, those positions for Congressman Crenshaw have come at a political cost. But what's notable about Crenshaw, as Caitlin aptly said, he's the one Republican not having President Trump's endorsement, is that Crenshaw's very high profile. He's not some backbencher who's kind of just doing his thing, having his own positions. He has proclaimed his positions publicly. And for a president who watches everything, well, that endorsement didn't come.
And very quickly, Robert, on the Senate race, that has divided some in the inner circle of President Trump's MAGA universe.
Well, there's a real view that President Trump needs protection in the Senate. And inside of the White House, and at least in the broader circle of President Trump, not everyone is totally sold, based on my reporting and private conversations, on the Attorney General of Texas and his political viability in a general election. They've seen Republicans before in states like Indiana back in 2012 when they run Republicans who don't do so well in a general. You can lose a state that's known as more of a red state. And so Republicans have been burned in the past by candidates who come out of a primary fiery, but don't have the ability to really sustain that momentum in a general. The Paxton coalition says he's ready for a general, but Texas is very red, but not entirely red. I've spoken to Senator Cruz many times. He always is telling me Republicans have to worry about Texas. It's changing demographically. It's got more Democrats moving there, and Republicans just can't think of it as a Trump state, a red state.
Robert Costa, thanks so much. Also, thank you to Caitlin Huey-Burns. CBS News correspondent Nydia Cavazos is covering the Republican Senate primary, and she is at the just mentioned Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton's headquarters. Nydia.
Major, things are just getting started at this Ken Paxton watch party, and that's because we're in Dallas County and polling centers at this very moment still remain open, and there are people in Dallas County who are still waiting in line to vote. Now, we're talking about a Senate race here that, as we know and we have been covering, is very, very competitive, and it is widely anticipated that we will be seeing a runoff here with almost 3 more months of campaigning between the two contenders. Now, as for Senator John Cornyn, he's trying to run for a 5th term on Capitol Hill, and this is over 24 years in service, and he's been touting on the campaign trail that he is a Trump ally and he has voted with President Trump over 99% of the time. But to Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, Cornyn is not conservative enough. And to Representative Wesley Hunt, they say that he says that Senator John Cornyn is simply part of the establishment and he has to go. And so this is a race that we're going to be closely watching, but we've been hearing from conservative voters, and this just goes to show that these are all the different types of factions that you can have within a Republican Party in Texas.
Nydia Cavazos, thank you so much for that. Coming up, you've heard about polls, you've heard about politics, you're also hearing about prediction markets. What that data says about tonight's races. It's a big part of the conversation. We're going to talk about it when we come back.
Go to the ends of the earth.
We'll hit the heights.
A great adventure together.
And reach for the stars.
Star power. I like it.
So cool.
But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking.
Something that's undeniable.
With mindfulness. Innovative.
Magical.
It's like being a child.
And truly original reporting.
How'd you do your research? I tell a good story.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
Do you believe this case could be solved?
Yes, I do.
What is your emergency? I accidentally shot my wife.
Do you think it was accidental? I guess that's the million-dollar question.
It's not a violent crash.
No.
Whoa.
There's our connection.
Lady down.
I knew this was going to happen.
Did this look like an accident or something else?
Something entirely different.
I never would have guessed how this ended.
48 Hours, now streaming on CBS and Paramount Plus.
Watch now.
Here we go.
The ultimate tradition continues.
60 Minutes is here right now.
America's #1 news program is a free streaming channel. It's time for 60 Minutes everywhere you watch.
I'm Major Garrett in Washington, inviting you to the Takeout. Politics, policy, people, and pop culture served up weeknights. What's on the menu? Plenty. The day's happenings with curiosity and formality and humor. It's serious discussion, but we do not take ourselves too seriously. Who is a better speaker, Mike Johnson or you?
Oh, come on.
Join me on the Takeout. Streaming right here on CBS News 24/7.
It was almost like being face to face with the devil.
48 Hours reports.
I fought and fought.
911, what is your emergency?
She disappeared off the face of the earth.
Stream 48 Hours 24/7.
Money Watch is your no-nonsense guide to taking control of your finances, where I offer practical, real-world advice with no jargon and no judgment. I'm Jill Schlesinger. Listen to Money Watch wherever you get your podcasts.
You both had talked about going on Survivor together.
Right.
A Survivor contestant believes his sister was murdered.
I'm sorry that I couldn't protect you.
And is determined to be her voice.
This is her speaking to everyone saying, don't let this happen to you.
48 Hours, now streaming on CBS and Paramount Plus.
It could be the greatest turnaround in college football history.
What is the magic here?
The undefeated Big Ten champs, Indiana Hoosiers.
Go behind the scenes of one of TV's most watched true crime series with the 48 Hours Postmortem Podcast. Follow and listen to 48 Hours wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back. One way people are expressing how they think a political campaign might turn out is venturing to prediction markets. Probably heard this term, Kalshi, yes. CBS News Election Surveys Director Anthony Salvanto, talk to me about the Kalshi effect.
Because we're always looking to see what people out there are thinking.
Right, and how they're thinking.
How they're thinking and what they're trading on at this point. Now, that's what these prediction markets do, right? You talked about Kalshi, and what we've seen when we look at these numbers out of the Republican Senate primary, for example, right? Now, we see Cornyn right now with a little bit of an edge on Paxton. But what you've seen in the prediction markets, let me emphasize, it's not a poll, it's not vote data, it's what people are thinking is going to happen, and they're trading with each other, right? So the Kalshi numbers right now, I've noticed, still have Paxton favored in the minds of those who were placing the trades, right? But that's changed a little bit over time since the start of this night. Paxton's numbers still favored, but a little bit down. Cornyn's numbers still the underdog in the mind of the market, but a little bit up. And I wonder if that's sort of baking in the idea that this might go to a runoff, number one, and that if it does go to a runoff, a lot of political pundits might be thinking, well, in a runoff, that more ideological electorate comes out, maybe that favors Paxton. That's one way you can read into this, but these prediction markets, what we're seeing in those Kalshi numbers right now, really interesting measure that's out there these days.
And Anthony, that's a real-time evaluation of how sentiments are shifting about probabilities. Sentiments about probabilities.
Right. It's what people think is likely to happen. And, and more specifically, to your point, how likely they think it is and what they're willing to go out and trade on.
And it's worth pointing out that this week, Kalshi and the Associated Press reached an agreement in which Kalshi will have access to all of AP's election reporting results data. That's bringing Kalshi and the Associated Press into the election space in a very big way. That's not a commercial or anything. It's just a fact, ladies and gentlemen. I want to turn to CBS News political director Finn Gomez. Finn, I know you've been tracking tonight and all of this year and the year before that and the year before that and the year before that Latino voters in America. So break it down for us.
Look, in Texas, why does Texas matter so much, and why does the Latino voter so significant here? It's because it makes up the population. The Latino population in Texas is about 40% of the population. There's about 7 million eligible voters in Texas. And why are we watching this, and why does it matter? In 2024, Donald Trump made historic inroads with Hispanic voters. On a national level, he won with about almost half, 48% of Latino voters overall, 54% of the Latino male voters. But in Texas, he won 55% of Hispanic voters, which was a 14-point swing from Biden in 2020. And what we've seen in our own CBS News polling and in other polls is there's been a double-digit drop, a slide from that support. And Democrats feel that they can pick up on this, that they can make gains with Hispanic voters. And this is the largest electorate of Hispanic voters that we have seen since 2024. So I talked to some national Democrats and some national Republicans today, and they're both watching. They're seeing how this breaks out today, and they're literally going to take this, make it part of their blueprint, part of their roadmap for these other big elections in other battleground states with Hispanic voters where they believe they can make a difference there. So that's why there's so much interest in Texas.
Finn Gomez, thank you so much. Our coverage will continue on your local news and tomorrow on CBS Mornings. Thank you to all of our correspondents, contributors, and guests. I'm Major Garrett. No water splashed in my face. Maybe later. In New York, from the Broadcast Center. Thanks for hanging out with us. Good night. Happy primary night, the first one of 2026. See ya.
Chilling with the queen, her name is Gail King.
Hey!
CBS Morning.
CBS Morning.
CBS Morning.
CBS Morning.
See you at 7.
CBS Morning.